This evening I'm joined by the Honorable Oscar George. The Minister of State in the Ministry of Culture, Youth, Sports and Community Development. He has specific responsibility for youth and sports. He'll be with us for the next hour and we'll be speaking sports development in Dominica. Just to let you know, at some point we'll open up the lines so you can call in with your questions. I know that many of you are very passionate about sports. This is your opportunity to interact directly with the Honorable Minister. Tell him your thoughts, your opinions, your recommendations on how sports can be enhanced in the Commonwealth of Dominica. Honorable Oscar George, good evening and welcome to Focus on Government and Development.
Good evening to you, Dion. It's a pleasure being here this evening. I would like to say good evening to your listeners of Focus on Government and Development. Good evening to the young people of Dominica. Good evening to our athletes, our sports enthusiasts, our administrators. I'm happy to be here to discuss some important matters as it relates to sports.
Just up to December, you were responsible for telecoms and broadcasting. As of December, you've shifted responsibility, shifted roles as a former cricketer, a sports enthusiast. This must be a welcome change for you.
Yeah, most definitely. I think it was received with both hands and feet, I must say. I want to thank the Honorable Prime Minister for giving me the opportunity to serve. And most importantly, to serve in a capacity where I could impact so much change. But as you mentioned, last year I held the portfolio of telecommunications and broadcasting. It was an important portfolio, I must say. The fact is that it was a time when there was so much pressures placed on the sector. If you recall, with the COVID-19 pandemic, there was so much pressures on access, to broadband, access to devices, the issues of roaming, the issues of post-disaster communications. I think, a good job was done in that sector. When I came into this portfolio, there was about 40 to 50% broadband penetration. And then as of today, we can say that we're upwards 90% as it relates to broadband penetration. And that is commendable for us. We procured so many devices for school children. There was advances in our disaster communications. So I think, I did a wonderful job. My contribution was well received, and that's, good to know. But for now, on to sports and youth. And I must say that that is where my heart is, sports and youth. And just to say that, I have been playing sports for all my life. I started out at the tender age of 9 in Penville. I grew up in a home, with my grandparents, just about, 90 seconds away from the playing field. And the primary school itself was about 5 minutes away. So as you can imagine, I spent a lot of time on the playground playing sports, in particular cricket. So that's where I learned my trade. That's where I developed my skills. And of course, from there, playing for the Penville Primary School, moving on to represent Dominica on the 13 team. I had the opportunity to captain that team. I also had the opportunity to captain the Dominica under 15 and the Dominica under 19 cricket teams. That in itself was a good experience for me. Before moving on to the Windward Islands under 19 cricket team, and eventually to the Dominica senior men's team. So I have some experience as it relates to sports, and I think what it does, it allows me to relate more with the athletes. I understand what they're going through. I understand what they need, what they want. I understand the challenges, and I can use that experience in my capacity as Minister of State to help out and to push the sector forward. So I'm happy to be there. The Ministry of Sports, it's a wonderful ministry. I want to say good evening to our Minister, Honorable Roberts, very passionate lady when it comes to culture and sports and community development. So good evening to you, Ms. Roberts. And of course, the PS and all the administrative staff. They have been doing a good job. Very enthusiastic bunch, I must say. And I'm just looking forward to working with them to advance the sector of sports.
All right. So, Minister, it's good to hear that you have such an active background in sports as a former cricketer, most of all. With that background, with that understanding of the sector, as you've just said, how would you describe your overall vision as the Minister of State with responsibility for sports, your overall vision for the development of sport in Dominica?
Well, we have a vision in this government as it relates to sports, and I think that is why we have been investing so heavily in sports over the years. Sports does wonders, especially for the young people. In some parts of the world, they refer to sports as a universal language. Different cultures, different ethnic groups play sports as a means of bilateral relations. So we are aware of this, and I think it's against this backdrop that we have decided to prioritize sports. And as it relates to the vision, I think that we will connect, or we will seek to connect the young persons to sport opportunities. I think the opportunities are endless in sports going forward, and I think we as a ministry and as a government, it's our mandate to get these opportunities wherever they are and connect our young persons to these opportunities. But importantly, I think the question is how do we go about doing that? In my humble opinion, there are a few areas where I think we should pay focus on to achieve that. The first of which I believe is developing sports at the grassroots level. And when I say grassroots level, I'm referring to in the communities, in the villages, in the primary schools, at the club level, on the road. I mean, when I grew up, we played cricket on the road very often, if not every day. And in these days we use oranges, grapefruits, tamarind, whatever you get, you convert it into a cricket ball and you will play cricket. And that led to some community-based competitions, such as the Harris Paint. It was a really, really good competition north of Dominica. And other inter-parish competitions, which I think played very important roles in developing sports at the grassroots level. And importantly, at the grassroots level, I think that getting the youngsters exposed to this sport at a very young age, it alters well for their development. I think that is the age where you learn your trade, and I think if we can invest or continue to invest resources in the grassroots development, I think we will achieve that vision of connecting our young persons to various opportunities. Another area I think we will focus on is the infrastructure, sporting infrastructure. I think we have been doing a good job as it relates to developing our sporting infrastructure, but there's a lot more that we will do. It's important to have your quality services to play. You cannot fault the athletes if they don't perform, if there's no way to perform. So that's why we will focus heavily on infrastructure. And then there's the enabling environment for our athletes. Very, very important for me. I think, incentivizing our athletes to play, rewarding them when they play well, recognizing them, especially when they perform at the national level. The sports policy to address areas such as giving them time off, insurance, all these areas. I think that will enable our athletes to perform better and make them feel better about themselves. And I think the last area I think that's also very important and can help us attain our vision is the area of sports tourism. I think attracting persons or visitors into Dominica to look at sports, I think that is an area where we have to consider going forward. And you can just see the impact of cricket, for instance, when we have cricket at the Windsor Park, the amount of persons who come in, they spend money in Dominica, and you can just, see the multiplier effect there with our vendors, or musicians, and that is where I think we should focus heavily on sports tourism, attracting persons to Dominica, so that they can enjoy what we have to offer and see our athletes perform.
We certainly can talk a little bit more about some of this later on in the program. But as I said, although you are responsible for youth, we wanted to focus specifically on sports this evening and probably bring you back at another point to talk about youth matters. So I really want to focus on some of the activities that are ongoing within the Ministry of Sports. For example, I know the government of Dominica is supporting the Dominica Netball Association for the Gene Pair Caribbean Netball Tournament being hosted in Dominica this weekend. Where are we with preparations for this event? And can you talk a little bit about how we are expected to benefit, well, the athletes themselves and Dominica as the host country?
Yeah, I think we're looking good as it relates to our overall preparations. Well, first I want to commend I want to thank the Caribbean Netball Association for selecting Dominica to host. There are many other countries that could be selected, and Dominica was selected, so we are happy for this. And I think that spells very good for us. If you recall, last year we hosted the OECS netball competition, and that was a huge success for us in Dominica. That showcased what we have to offer. And again, they decided to come to Dominica this time for the under 16 netball competition. So we are happy for this, and I must commend the Dominica Netball Association for the role they had to play in that. And just to say that when regional entities decide to come to Dominica to play, it's by no coincidence. I think they see that we are doing significant investments in sports. They see the enthusiasm, they see the interest, they see what's going on in terms of our facilities, and they're attracted to Dominica to play sports. And as I speak, we have proposals to host Caribbean volleyball. We have proposals to receive over 50 cyclists in Dominica. Myself and Greta, we had a meeting with some folks from fencing. All this, and last year we introduced boxing last year. So all these sports, non-traditional sports, but they are also very important in our overall development, and persons on the regional circuit, they're interested in coming to Dominica. So I'm very happy for this, and that just goes to shows the investments we've been making in sports. Well, as it relates to the netball, I think we are looking very good. The teams, they're here. The officials are here. We did some visits to the courts. Things are looking good. It's well prepared with the tents and the stage. The opening will be held on Saturday. And so I'm inviting everyone to come to the grand opening on Saturday at 4 p.m. at the Windsor Park forecourt. 6 teams will be participating this year in this year's competition. We have a team from Trinidad, we have a team from Barbados, from the Cayman Islands, a team from St. Lucia, Grenada, and of course our team from the Nature Isle. We met with our team on Monday. We took some time and met with them personally, and just handed over the uniforms, the kits, to represent us. And I like the vibes, as we would say, among the young girls. I suspect we might win that competition because of the energy they possess. So I think that all our I's are dotted. There might be some T's that have to be crossed at least by tomorrow. We should be okay. But we remain committed to netball as a government. As I said, we spent a lot of money for OECS last year. In this competition, we have committed $51,000 to assist the Dominica Netball Association. And of course, most of the resources of the personnel in the ministry have been supporting the Netball Association to ensure that this competition is a success. As it relates to the impact on the young girls, I think that's just wonderful for them. The exposure, the competition, just the level and the intensity is good for them as young girls. Playing school netball is completely different than playing against Trinidad or Barbados. And I think they have to grab that opportunity and make the best of it. We will support them, and I urge the public to come out and support them. As an athlete, just having the crowd support, that's just wonderful. It does a lot for your self-confidence. So come out and support the netball starting this Saturday. It's only $5 to get you in. It starts at 5:30, which is a very convenient time. for most persons. So just come out and support wonderful netball.
And speaking of youth involvement in sports, because we're talking about under 16 girls, Alec Athenas, our cricketer, was recently named to the West Indies senior men's team. In fact, just today, a few hours ago, he scored his second first-class century against the Leeward Islands. How important do you think are these achievements for young Athenas, but also for Dominica's cricket?
Yeah, I think it's just a wonderful opportunity to have Athenas number first captain in the Windward's team. And I just want to take some time to congratulate him on his second century. I think he's 105 not out. I think now the selectors have enough evidence to show them that Alec has something special. We cannot allow Alec to be on a West Indies team and not getting picked in the first 11. I mean, if you look around the Caribbean now, currently as we speak, you're not going to find much batsmen that's better than Alec. But he has been performing well. If I recall, he had good performances in the Super 50, a couple centuries there, and then he was elevated to the captaincy of the Volcanoes team. And I think many persons question, why Alec, should be promoted to captaincy. That captaincy will, put a lot of pressure on him. It happens sometimes, and guess what happened? The first game after that, he scored 100 while captaining the team. And if a guy can perform at that level when there's added pressure of captaincy, and that just goes to show the type of man he is. I think he's a natural leader. I think he normally supports and encourages his teammates, and most importantly, he commands the respect of the players. So it's a wonderful time for us in Dominica. I'm happy for the people of Granby, his family, and Dominica by extension. Let's all just rally around Alec. It's just a matter of time that he'll be not just in the 11, but performing and making us proud. So we support him, and I congratulate him in a special way.
You say it's a wonderful time for Dominica. I wonder if it's added impetus for your ministry to continue to invest in our players and create the enabling environment for young cricketers, young sportsmen like Athenas to thrive.
Yeah, most definitely. Alec is a product of the sports division, going up through the ranks, and then he played school cricket. He played age group cricket, the under-19s, and then to the senior level. He has spent a lot of time in Portsmouth with his coach, Sam, and I want to commend Sam for his hard work there. A very good coach in Portsmouth. So I think all young cricketers can take a page from Alec's book. Just look at him, he's quiet, but, he's focused, and I think that's very important. Take advantage of the opportunities that we create for you to perform, because performance is always dependent on your ability or your mental state. You have to push yourself the extra mile. So the ministry will continue to provide the resources. We will give you the exposure. We will send you overseas. We pay for the trips, send you to Gary Sober's competitions, send you to youth cricket competitions. But at the end of the day, you have to use that experience to benefit your own personal self. You have to decide that I'm going to perform, I'm going to practice hard, I'm going to work on my weaknesses. And I think if any young cricketer has to see something, Alec, that is what I think they should note the most, that his ability to learn quickly and adapt to different situations, and of course perform under any circumstance.
All right. Thank you for that. Minister, you alluded to it earlier on, the importance of sports infrastructure. And in fact, one of the biggest preoccupations for sportsmen and women in Dominica is the matter of adequate sporting facilities. But we know that government has made significant investments in recent years to upgrade sporting facilities across the island. Bring us up to date on some of these interventions.
Well, as I said earlier, having the necessary infrastructure is super critical for the advancement of sport. And if I start, in Roseau and move outwards, at the Windsor Park, which is, known to be one of the the favorite grounds for cricket in the region now. Not just because of the amenities, but because of the influence of the crowd. Dominicans really love their cricket, so they will come out rain or sun to watch cricket. So we have done a lot of work at the Windsor Park. We have upgraded the playing surface, the outfield. We have upgraded the scoreboard. It's very important for us. We have one of the top scoreboards in the world as we speak. And of course, we have upgraded the Players Pavilion recently. And of course, the forecourt. We have transformed the forecourt into a venue that we can now host regional and international netball and basketball games. And I think that's very important for us to continue to invest in the Windsor Park, because it's our primary facility in the city. And I think if we continue to invest monies in ensuring that we keep it and we maintain the facilities, that will be an excellent decision for us. The Benjamin's Park is another facility where we have give considerable attention. And I recall the days, back then when the Benjamin's Park was just a swamp, a complete swamp in the town of Portsmouth. And then through consistent investments, we have been able to transform the Benjamin's Park into a top-class facility, not just for cricket, but for basketball, for football. We have started the Dominica Cricket Academy, where we give our young players an opportunity to spend weekends there, work on the game, and of course represent Dominica at youth cricket. And that's making a huge impact for us in Benjamin's Park. We have upgraded the pavilion. And very, very recently we saw the construction of an indoor cricket facility. And I must say that not many countries have this sort of facility, an indoor cricket facility where we have artificial matting, nets, we have bowling machines, we have light, it's fully ventilated. So basically what that means is that our cricketers in the north have access to a training facility 24/7. So rain is not an excuse now to train and to train hard. You have a proper top-class facility right here in Portsmouth for the entire north to train. And I must say that Alec is one of the guys who have used that facility very well. But the Benjamin's Park, we will continue to see tremendous investments at the Benjamin's Park, because I think it's ideally situated in the town of Portsmouth, and we have the PSS, the Portsmouth Secondary School, a large youth population in Portsmouth. So it's important that we continue to invest in Portsmouth. We have also done tremendous investments in other playing fields. We have upgraded. Our work is ongoing on the Geneva playing field. It is a very important facility for us. Not because Alec is now a West Indies player, but I think Granby have a lot of cricketers, and that facility is very needed in Granby. We have collaborated with FIFA. We have gotten some funds from FIFA to assist us in improving the drainage at Geneva playing field, and we have done a lot of excavating or getting rid of the debris and leveling of the playing field to ensure that we can play. But there's some work, some additional work to be done at Geneva. I intend to visit Geneva myself next week, just to see where we are and what is required to complete Geneva and have a proper playing surface. Similarly, in Woofordale, we have recently done some works on the playing field there. I think that's very good for the Northeast, having a proper facility in Woofordale. We have constructed the pavilion. We have improved the drainage in terms of the grassing that is ongoing. The grass has been planted, and we ensure that or monitor the grass to make sure it meets the criteria going forward. So I think we have done a lot of work as it relates to our sporting facilities. If you consider the erection of lights at playing fields, that we have also given that a lot of attention. We recently provided lights at the Lindo Park, and that again is ideally situated in my view for persons around Roseau to come in, take a sweat, play some football and some softball cricket. there. We have provided lights in the Tipo playing field, and there are a number of other playing fields where we have provided lights. We have provided fencing to ensure that we secure the entire perimeters, retaining walls. So the investment is massive when it comes to sporting facilities around Dominica. Obviously, you cannot do everything at one time, but slowly but surely we will ensure all our playing facilities get some attention going forward. But what I want to recommend or to advise is that, it makes no sense we invest all these monies in playing fields and nobody comes to use the playing field.
Have you seen that? Is this something you've noticed?
Yeah, it's a trend I've noticed that, we spend a lot of money on improving playing fields. At the end of the day, you pass and there's nobody on the playing field. You pass back in the night, even when, the playing field has lights and no one or is using the playing field.
But it's an interesting thing then. How do you, from where you sit, how does the Ministry of Sport begin to inspire and motivate young people to get involved in sporting activity?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the issue of building the grassroots movement. If we can organize proper community sporting events, and I think a way we can start that is by developing sporting committees in various communities. And they will be charged with the responsibility of organizing sporting events. The issue is that everyone will want to come and play when there's an event, but nobody will want to volunteer to organize. So as soon as, or if we have a committee in place that is determined and that we can maybe give some resources to organize, I think it can happen, and we will see more use of our playing fields around Dominica.
All right. Still with facilities, we saw the commissioning of the indoor facility at Massac at the end of last year, towards the end of last year. It is my understanding that there are plans to develop additional basketball facilities. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we have given basketball equal emphasis going forward. I want to commend the Basketball Association first and foremost, because we saw the return of basketball after 5 years or so recently, and that opening took place at the Massac basketball court. And besides the opening and besides them bringing back basketball, they also took the step to develop a strategic plan, and even went further in exploring ways in which they can acquire insurance for the players. And I think that is very, very proactive by the Basketball Association. And these are things that we recommend that all associations do. It's important to have a plan. It's very important to have a plan. And most importantly, it's important to even share that plan with stakeholders, inclusive of central government. So basketball is back. The season is ongoing. It seems to be very exciting. And we will commit to support basketball as far as practically possible. One of the issues I think we should address in basketball is the issue of decentralizing basketball. We cannot allow ourselves to reach in a position where basketball is only played in a few communities, or the Massacs, the St. Joseph, the Roseau. We have to ensure that we bring basketball in the odd districts, bring basketball to the southeast and the northeast of Dominica. And one way of doing that is to ensure that there's facilities in these areas, because as we speak, I'm not aware of any proper quality facility in the southeast, for example. So we will start by developing an indoor facility in Portsmouth. So if you think Massac was a top-class facility, just wait and see what Portsmouth will bring. But the intention is to develop this facility at the Benjamin's Park. We have 2 courts, bleachers, lights, all the amenities, changing rooms, all these things to ensure that we can prevent the elements of the weather from affecting basketball. We also have plans to develop another indoor facility in Roseau. That will be done at the grammar school grounds as part of the whole grammar school rehabilitation project. So apart from these 2 major indoor facilities, we also have plans to cover some basketball facilities around Dominica. And again, I think that is very important for basketball, because the cry from the basketballers is that the surface is not suitable for playing basketball, and then there's the weather effect. When it rains, we have to call off basketball, and it's just not good to travel all the way to a court to play a game, and you have to call off the game because of bad weather. So I think cover in basketball courts is a good move. It's a move that has been endorsed by our Prime Minister, and we are fully on board with this. So shortly we will finalize the courts, which we intend to cover, and of course go through the normal process of getting estimates and stuff like that. The Southeast in particular, currently the sports division is doing assessments there, because we want to have a proper facility in the Southeast to ensure that we can play proper basketball in the Southeast. It may or may not be covered, but at least we can have a good facility to encourage our basketball to thrive.
Honorable Minister, interestingly, I'm seeing questions coming in via WhatsApp, which is an interesting thing for me because I notice it's a trend in talk radio nowadays to take questions via WhatsApp. So we'll get back to that. But I wanted to ask you about the fact that footballers, especially on the East, Southeast, they have been making a case for the development of playing fields, and I know that's an issue for We United and East Central in the Castlebrooks area, who have to play all of their games at Portsmouth and Dubla. Is your ministry looking to address these concerns?
Yeah, that's a serious concern for the ministry and for me personally. I have reached out to the DFA to discuss this. Because, and also players have reached out to me expressing that same concern about having to travel all the way to Portsmouth to play games. So what we have done so far is we have identified a few playing fields in the east, Castlebrooks, Grand Fond, and Lapline, to see what can be done to get them to a certain standard and can have football matches. As we speak, there's an agreement we are in discussion with the DFA in terms of upgrading these playing fields. I think 6 or 7 playing fields will be upgraded. But we are in discussion. It has not been finalized yet. And for me personally, I would want to ensure that we don't, or we protect the rights of the public. We have to ensure that the community have access to these playing fields. The athletes come first. But as long as we can get over that small hurdle, ensuring that the agreement doesn't disenfranchise the community groups, the community athletes and stuff like that, I'm pretty sure we can finalize on this agreement. But it's something that we are aware of at the ministry, and it's something that we will work with the DFA and with other stakeholders to try and see if we can bring some proper facilities to the Southeast.
I'm sure that's very encouraging and very good news for the football players on the Southeast and the east of Dominica. One of the WhatsApp questions coming in has to do in some ways with football. One of our listeners wants you to comment on the recent incidents we've seen on the football field. Recently there was a spat between a referee and a player, that kind of thing. Have you taken note of these kinds of things, and do you have an opinion, advice on these matters?
Yeah, definitely. When I found out about it, I spoke to the DFA president about it. But it's not something we would like to see in football. Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand that football is a very active sport, and sometimes players get very emotional because everybody wants to win, and the hype is there. But it's not something we should encourage. I think we should all be professional players. When you go to represent your team or your club or your country, you have to be an ambassador to that club or team. And it doesn't involve fighting with an official or fighting with another player. So you just have to be respectful of each other and just play in the spirit of the game. Football was never developed to fight with each other. Let's do our clean tackles. Let's be hostile when we have to. Let's play hard football. Let's put all our heart and soul on the court, on the field, but don't get involved in fighting. But I believe that the DFA took some disciplinary action in that case. So I'm happy they did that, because we should not tolerate any violence when it comes to football. Let's play football in the spirit of the game. I think they call it the world game. Let's play the world game with utmost respect for all the players.
All right. Minister, I'm still on sporting infrastructure, and I wanted to ask you to provide us a status update on the stadium lighting project that is ongoing at the Windsor Park Sports Stadium.
Well, I do think I have to convince anybody about the importance of this project. As you know, having lights at your stadium facilities is critical. We see the emergence of T10 cricket, we see the emergence of T20, we see CPL now, and of course there's the international cricket 2020s, which we all would prefer to go and see in the night time. And there's you can use the facility for other reasons outside sports. So there's no contention as to if it's important or not. The fact is, following Hurricane Maria, 2 of the poles were toppled over. And since then we had no lights at the facility. So I personally I see the benefits of having the lights, and as you tell, very soon after I came in, we had to do something about that.
So it's something you pushed for, you said?
Yeah. I think if we don't do that, we'll miss many opportunities in sport. So it's important. So we have signed a contract for the first phase. I think it's worth $2.5 million for the first phase of this restoration project. And the whole intention is basically in the first phase to first demolish the 2 existing poles. I think that has been done already, on the foundation, to run all the underlining ducts and wires and cables required for the lighting, and of course rebuild the foundations that will then take the light poles. And following that, we will go into the second phase, which is the actual erection of the poles on the foundations. Interestingly, we had 4 poles, and the fact is these lights were developed for cricket specifically. Lights for cricket. It's a cricket stadium. We play football, but it's a cricket stadium. Lights for cricket have certain specifications, which is required. I don't think that this met it. It met these specifications for general lighting, which is fine, which is good. But for cricket, especially at the international level, we will need specific lights. And of course, we have decided to do 6 lights instead of 4, and I think that is an improvement. I'm going forward to have 6 lights, and of course bring these light poles further backwards, and that adds to the overall specifications for the lights. There are some issues which we are mindful of in terms of casting shadows on the grounds. We have to try to prevent that in terms of how bright the light is, to facilitate HDTV broadcasting. All these factors are taken into consideration, and we are making headway with this project. We expect to complete phase 1 in about a month and a half, and then we will go into procuring the new lights fixtures to install the poles. That's an important project. Obviously, there will be some inconveniences because of this project. I know that the DC has cricket coming up, Dream 11 cricket. Yeah. We will try our best to facilitate that, given the ongoing works. And of course, there may be some activities some folks want to plan. We will also try to work with all stakeholders to ensure that we don't disrupt too much that is planned for the Windsor Park. But we're on target, and hopefully we should have light fixtures up and start attracting top cricket in the Windsor Park again.
Yeah, we certainly look forward to that, and I know the Dominican public, they're very passionate about this aspect of sports in Dominica, being able to host regional and international cricket tournaments with ease at the Windsor Park Sports Stadium. Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerritt has announced the construction of a synthetic track in the Point Round area near Portsmouth. What can you tell us about the preparations for this major project?
We have, just to give some context, we have delivered as it relates to infrastructure in cricket, in football, basketball, and I think it's about time that we do some serious headway for our track athletes. So I think this project is very timely, very, very timely for our track athletes. So this project will consist of a 400-meter Italian track, synthetic track. We will have a practice track. We will have amenities. We will have office space. We will have parking. We will have lights. We will have provisions for all the different types of track events. Like discus and shot put and all these things, javelin. So it's a top class facility which we tend to build in Point Round. We have identified the Point Round area as a suitable site for that facility. And again, I'm happy for the people in the north. I think that will add a lot of value if it's situated in the north. So a lot of work has to go on in the background before we can make headway. Of course, we will have to do our surveys. We will have to look at the water courses. We'll have to do look at utilities, the parking space, the soil tests, all these things we have to do, and it's currently ongoing. The Ministry of Sports has been leading on that in terms of doing all the assessments and having conceptual designs for this. And of course, it will require a lot of earth movement because I'm sure you maybe drove through the Point Round area and noticed the site. So we will require a lot of earth movement. And all this is being worked on in terms of estimates as to how much earth we will need to move to ensure we have a flattened surface. And of course, where exactly we will put the court in terms of the specific location on the ground. So this exercise is ongoing as we speak. We expect to finish that very shortly. And as soon as we can finalize on that, we can mobilize a contractor to do the requisite earthworks, and then a contractor to do the actual development of the court of the surface. But I think it's something that all our athletes should be proud of, should be happy, should be following. And as I'm on the issue of athletes, we have 6 athletes that have qualified for Carifta from Dominica, and I want to wish them well. They will be heading to the Bahamas, I believe, for the 50th Carifta in a couple of weeks. And again, I want to commend the Dominica Olympic Committee, the DAAA. They have been doing a good job with the athletes. And of course, we provide the support we can to ensure they perform in Bahamas.
Speaking of the support that is provided to our athletes, the sports division continues to provide all young sportsmen, especially at the primary, not especially, but at the primary and secondary school level, with that kind of breeding ground, if you will, the foundation they need to develop their skills and talent in sports. Can you comment on some of the initiatives currently ongoing at the sports division?
Well, the sports division have been doing an excellent job, and many times I feel we don't appreciate the amount of work that goes on at the sports division. Sometimes we as athletes, we show up to these meets, to these games, to these sporting events. We play, we have a good time, we win, and we go home without appreciating the amount of work that goes on behind the scene by the sports division, to ensure that these things are successful. So I want to really commend the coordinator for his hard work. I believe today was the ending of the athletics meet in Portsmouth. And a lot of athletes turned up. This week, we recently had volleyball in the stadium. I believe the Dominica State College won the volleyball. We had schools under 20 cricket. won by the State College again. We had football, won by the Dominica Grammar School, under 13, under 17. So a lot of things are going on at the sports division. And I think it's important because they work with the young persons. They work with the person at the primary school level. And that is very important. That's the grassroots we're talking about, the primary school level. And that is the age where you have to nurture these young people to develop their sporting skills. And I think we have a wonderful group of sports officers. I've seen them work. I know all of them personally. And I think that they are doing a wonderful job for our young and upcoming athletes. And just to say, on some other initiatives, they have this caravan. I think it's a cricket coaching caravan.
Yes.
Where they go around the different schools and meet the athletes and help them. And I think initiatives like that, has great value in developing sports, because not everybody that's going to come to Roseau or come to national trials. Sometimes you have to go in the communities and meet the young persons and to develop their skills. So that's important. They continue to work with the physical education teachers at various primary schools, and that again has some value. As I'm on the issue of physical education, I recall the Prime Minister saying that physical education should be more about the physical aspect, the sports, and not just the book physical education. And I think that is where the value of the sports division comes in. They go in there with the physical education students and practice and play on a regular basis. So we're happy with the contribution the sports division is making. Obviously, nothing's not perfect, but we will continue to work with them to ensure that we deliver on their mandate, and that mandate is clear. It's just ensuring that our young talent, first and foremost, we identify them at an early age and work with them all through to develop their skills to the higher level.
Mm-hmm. We've been speaking to the Honorable Minister with responsibility for sports. Honorable Oscar George is our guest on this evening's Focus on Government and Development. If you have a question, a concern to share, a recommendation on how we can develop the sporting sector in Dominica, you can call us on 1-800-327-305-432-9744, 448-3281 or 448-3279. Honorable George, I want to touch on a couple things you mentioned earlier that I wanted to follow up on. So, for example, you brought up the National Sports Council. I wonder if you could provide us with an update, the latest on the formation, the implementation of the National Sports Council.
Yeah, sure. The whole idea behind the National Sports Council is just to improve on the management and administration of sports in Dominica. In some countries, they refer to it as the Sports Authority. We chose to go with Sports Council, but it's very important. We have ideas as to what we would like the Sports Council to look like, but of course we have to hear from the athletes and the stakeholders. So what we have done, we have put in place a task force to spearhead that effort, to spearhead the consultative process. So the responsibility of that task force is to meet with the associations, meet with the athletes, hear from them, take the recommendations as to what they think the Sports Council should look like, what they think the functions of the Sports Council should be going forward. And as I speak, we have received good feedback from the task force, from the engagement with the various associations, and what we have now is we have a draft structure. There's consensus on a draft structure, what the council should look like. This is being reviewed by the ministry, and very shortly we will take a decision as to what that structure should look like, and following the approval of that structure, obviously we will seek to engage persons in the respective positions, put in place a board to ensure that decisions are taken just in the interest of sports in Dominica. And importantly, Dion, when this council is formed, one of the tasks of the council is to develop a sports policy. And I think this is something that we have been speaking about it for some time, and we never have been able to finalize it. But it's an important function of the council to develop the sports policy. Obviously, they will have the experience from the consultation. They will have met all the associations and all the respective athletes to get a feel from them. And the policy is very important, because they have been concerned about a number of areas which we should maybe try and take decisions on. The issue of time off for athletes. You're selected to play for Dominica. You work in the private sector, you work in the government service. So then you're required to go out of Dominica for 10 days to play for Dominica, to represent Dominica. But you cannot get time off. So what the intention is to have a clear policy as to what happens, what is the process when a person is selected to play for Dominica, and that in itself will help us solve a lot of these challenges. There is issues of insurance. Shouldn't national players and even our local leagues have insurance, player insurance? So in case somebody get involved in a fight at a soccer match, a football match, and somebody get hurt, can the insurance pay? If somebody break the leg, can the insurance pay? And I think that is important going forward, and that is improvements we can make. But all of these can be spelled out properly in a policy. So one of the main functions of the council is to develop a policy. Another important function of the council, and which was articulated by the Honourable Prime Minister, is coming up with the terms for the establishment of a sports trust fund. And I think that is very much needed in Dominica. It's expensive to partake in sports, and especially cricket. I recall buying an entire cricket kit costs upwards of $1,000. So if you're a young man, going to Portsmouth Secondary School, and you're playing cricket, you want your own gears, you have to spend $1,500 to get the cricket bag with gears. So that has been limiting players from getting their own gears. And so that trust fund is intended to meet certain costs like this. It's a fund where young athletes can make a request through the proper channel and tap into the resources from that trust fund to meet expenditures such as buy the kit. You're going on a tour for Dominica. You need this, you need that. You can make a request and you get some funds to cut some expenses for you. So I think starting with the council, leading up to the policy, and then eventually to the trust fund, I think that is a clear path for us in sports as it relates to the whole administration of our sport in Dominica.
Yeah, and I must tell you, this sounds good in terms of providing a structure under which sports can develop and function on the island. Earlier on, Minister, I heard you identify the need for sporting organizations to plan and significantly to share that plan with the policymakers like yourself. Is there a need that you're identifying to strengthen collaboration with clubs and sporting organizations, with the government of Dominica, with the Ministry of Sports?
Yeah, that's very important. I mean, we don't want a situation where associations only depend on government for financial resources. I mean, it goes more than just financial resources. We want to get involved. There are other ways we can assist your association or your club outside financial resources. And what I've learned over the years is that collaboration is always better than trying to work in isolation. So that's my advice to the clubs and the associations. Let's work together. We're fighting for the same thing, so we should not work in isolation. And I believe that the council which we just referenced will greatly aid that whole process in ensuring that central government can work more closely with the clubs and the associations around Dominica.
And this is not meant to offer any kind of criticism, but when we talk about club structure and planning and putting plans and programs, structures in place, do you think from your observations that there is a need to strengthen club structure in Dominica as relates to any sport, basketball, football, cricket? Is there a need to strengthen our club structure?
Yeah, most definitely. I think, having the whole structure of a club, it brings discipline to the entire process. What you don't want is that you have a game and, 3 players coming from that community, 4 coming from that community. There's no communication because there's no president of the club, there's no vice president, there's no coordinator, and then you end up everyone coming to the ground late. And all these simple things can be solved by having a proper functioning club structure. And I think what we have done, what I've seen happen lately is that persons just select on their own a few folks and call it a club. I think it should be done properly. You invite folks, you meet, and you plan, and you have a proper functioning club. That will bring a lot of discipline towards sports in Dominica.
Caller, you're on to Focus on Government and Development. Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, sir.
Good evening to Honorable
Oscar George. Yes.
Oscar George. My question to you, Honorable Minister, as a young man, as an athlete who graduated grammar school and college, who pursuing to be an athlete, trying to be an athlete professionally or pursuing to be an athlete professionally, how can the government, I would say, assist the associations in moving forward to having a professional level of sport in Dominica?
Caller, thank you. Yes, Honorable Judge, do go on.
Yeah, I didn't quite get the question. I thought he asked about how can government assist clubs
to strengthen basically the same idea we were talking about. How can government assist these small clubs at any level to strengthen the organization?
Yeah, well, we have been supporting clubs. We have been supporting clubs over the years, and as I said, what we don't want is to only that the clubs only rely on government for financial assistance. We want it to be more than that. Yes, you will get the funds you require to do your programs, but in terms of your strategic plan, how can we support you? By sharing your plan with us, we can identify gaps in your plan and try to assist in that regard. We can give concessions to you. You have a tournament, you're bringing in equipment. Reach out to us. We can support you in terms of giving duty-free, taxes off, and you can clear your equipment. You have a competition. The ministry has buses. We can help you transport your players at no cost to you. So there's a lot of things we can do as a ministry to support the clubs and the association, but it have to start with some level of dialogue, some level of collaboration. But I take the caller's point, but I think it's just a matter of collaboration and communication.
Caller, good evening. Welcome to the program.
Yes, good evening to the world, and good evening to Rivernica, and good evening to Empress, and good evening to the Honorable Minister. Fireman touching base with the 2 cents. Now I want to talk about something about the football and athletics. Now I'm starting with the football. As the sister just said, but even the minister don't make his point earlier and clear that it's a little while that place that really do get into development. But the South is doing good in the football, so they really need some, some factories to get them up and running. You know what I'm saying? So yes. I know, well, you have things in place. But now, to the athletics now. Really and truly, I don't want to be in center of attraction, but I'm a person speaking to you right now. I speak to Mr. Usain Bolt as person, as I speaking on the radio right now. And I tell him something of visiting Rivernica. I don't say Dominica, I say Rivernica. You see me? So I was saying now, true right now, we on pension other ways. I don't know, I remember sometime our government wanted to bring Michael Jordan to Rivernica. So I say, true, right now we're on pension. If you think, I don't know if we have the money whatsoever what we have to do. You know what I'm saying? If you think we can put something in place to get the brother to visit the country and to visit most of our schools, even the secondary schools and the primary schools. You find it's a good idea? Even I do have sense, but somebody might have sense here, a little sense. What you say? And now, and the cricket department, well and truly, they call him Afanas, and they call him Afanas because Tatanos is a bad injection, not a bad, it's a bad injection, you know. So I call him Tatanos because why he's a good international great player. And that's why I always tell him personally, all he has to do, every time he gonna perform, he gonna bat, make 100 runs. You know what I'm saying? So once he's doing that, no matter what people say, do, his time will come. And it have the Queen of Dominica, as I call her. She's a great princess and a great empress same way. I know she's going to be one of West Indies players for us. So we have to give all that sister there a great support. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, we have a great country. I love everything all you're doing. Thank you for what you're doing for the country and the people. And we're willing to work even before I roll out. We have the president of the Cricket Association. I know you're on the next side, but I would love all to really to work with him. And me, myself, personally, I love to work with him because anything we're doing in our country to deliver our country and our people, I'm interested. That is my life. That is my mission. As I said before I roll out, every one of us have a responsibility to build our country and build our people. All you can do by yourself. We have to work in all you. Up and running, fireman running. Give thanks. Bless up.
Blessings to you. Thank you so much for calling. Minister?
Good points by Fireman. His last point, I would definitely work with all the associations. So there's no question about that. In terms of cricket and athletics to an extent, what I think we should focus on is, I think we have been doing some of it, but we need to do it more often, is invitational tours, inviting foreign teams to come to Dominica, stay for a week, play against our youth team and head back. And the next time we do the same, we go to their country and play some games. And of course, exposure, get our players, our clubs, get them to England, get them to Trinidad, get them to Barbados, play club cricket, stuff like that. I think that's important for us. And what it does is that it gets them accustomed to different playing conditions. And I think that is important to build a holistic cricketer, playing on bouncy pitches, playing in swinging conditions, playing on slow pitches. So these are two areas I think we should try to work on going forward.
Minister, I think this has been a very good discussion. You've been very knowledgeable about sports in general and very informative, and I think our listeners have quite appreciated that. As we close our program, what is your final word to Dominican athletes in general about excelling, achieving success in their chosen sport, and also how the government of Dominica, what they can look forward to from the government of Dominica in terms of support for their dreams, for their aspirations?
Yeah, thank you. In closing, I would just like to tell our athletes that, sports have the potential to transform your life. And not just your life, your family's life, and of course your entire community and country on a whole. And the opportunities are there to excel in sports, all sporting disciplines, not just cricket or football or basketball. There are tremendous opportunities in all sporting disciplines, but we have to grab it with both hands. As a government, we commit to continue helping you. We will provide the resources, we will provide the facilities, we will get the necessary frameworks in place to support you. But at the end of the day, your performance really depends on your input. You have to train. Too many times athletes go to play and they never train, or they don't train adequately. You have to make the time. You might be busy, you might be working, but you have to make the time to train. That's the only way you're going to succeed as an athlete. You have to work hard. You have to work with a plan. You have to know what are your weaknesses and train to overcome these weaknesses. And of course, lifestyle changes are important. You have to watch your diet. You have to limit your alcohol intake. As an athlete, you have to sleep. You have to get adequate rest. And of course, put God in everything that you do. I think that's very important. You can't just go through life without making God the center of everything that you do, because at the end of the day, you will only succeed if it's part of your life. But we commit to continue working with the athletes, but my advice to them is, one, train hard, do your preparation, work on your limitations, make time for yourself and for your diet. Take care of your body, because as an athlete, your body is your number one tool. If you're sick, that's it for you. And of course, take advantage of all the opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities to excel in sports. There's a hype, there's a buzz in sports, and there's money to be made. There's careers, long careers to be built. There's opportunities. So my advice, take advantage of the opportunities. Thank you very much.
You've been tuned in to Focus on Government and Development. We've been speaking sports with the Honorable Minister, Oscar George. He has specific responsibility for youth and sports. The next time he's here, we'll focus on youth development. We certainly look forward to that. Honorable Judge, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you for your insight.
Thank you very much, and have a blessed evening.
Thank you. You're invited to join us again next week, Thursday, for another edition of a Focus on Government and Development. We've planned to speak with the Honorable Minister for Tourism, Dennis Charles. We certainly look forward to that discussion. So much going on within the tourism sector. It's a pretty exciting time. And I'm not just talking about jazz and Creole. There's a lot more about to take off within the tourism sector. We'll tell you so much more about that next week right here on DBS Radio, Kyrie FM, and your social media platforms. My name is Dion Dira Smith. Good evening. Your government is working for you. Find out how every Thursday on Focus on Government and Development. We'll explore the programs, plans, and policies in place to improve your lives. Hear from the policymakers and call in with your questions and comments. Focus on Government and Development, Thursdays 8 to 9 p.m. on DBS Radio and Kyrie FM.